Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 3, Episode 10. And before we get into it, I want to let you know right now that Miss Jen Shah is out of control, and the way I'm about to get her together all throughout this recap because she tried it several times. Overall, I'm really getting tired of this cast because I don't like how nobody can stand 10 toes down in how they feel. You have Heather being the ultimate flip-flopper. 1 minute she's ride or die for Jen. The next minute she's BFFs with this one. Then she's trying to backtrack what she said about this person right here. It's always the same thing with her. You can never get a straight answer out of Heather. It's constant people pleasing, and I'm tired. You are too grown to be so afraid of what other people are going to think about you. And I've said it in several recaps that the friends on this show are dying to get a full-time position for next season, if there is a season 4, since the ratings have been abysmal. But y'all, let's just jump right on into this recap because as you guys can see, I have a lot to say and we don't have a minute to spare. So we start this episode off with all the ladies on the yacht. And just a quick side note, Mia from Potomac, this is the type of yacht that you get for a vacation. Not that pedal boat with pre-packaged 7-Eleven sandwiches. Just an FYI. But anyhow, you have Jen crying to Meredith and Heather, and then you have Angie K on the other side of the yacht crying about how she's upset at Jen pouring that glass of champagne on her head, and Lisa's co-signing it. Angie K says that it was hurtful and degrading. And it was, because I know that I would have been pissed off had somebody done that to me. And Jen, I've said this before, but you are very lucky that you were on this franchise, because I can assure you that had you pulled a stunt like this on Jersey or Potomac or Atlanta, it would have been a wrap for you. So of course we flip back over to Jen making herself to be the victim, and she says that she was just joking around when she poured that champagne on Angie K's head, and she swears that she was trying to lighten the mood because Angie K got weird during the house tour. So of course you have the flip-flopper known as Heather Gay talking about, oh my gosh, I know, Angie K got so weird during the house tour, she completely took over the trip like it's hers. Now here's where I got annoyed, because one thing about it, Heather will always find a way to throw somebody else under the bus, and she mentions that Lisa immediately took up for Angie K. So now Jen's really annoyed, and she says, I just can't believe Lisa. She didn't even check on me to see if I was okay. And I'm thinking, but why would anybody check on you, Jen? You're the one who made a complete fool of yourself at the house. You poured the drink on Angie K. It wasn't the other way around. Now, I really screamed when they showed Angie K talking to Whitney, Dana, and Lisa. And Angie K brings up all the charges against Jen and how Jen is allegedly not guilty, she's innocent. And then when Angie K went on to say, I mean, honestly, I feel like she's being charged with conning people out of money, but I feel like me and my husband have been conned into paying for Coach Shaw's party. So Angie K continues on by adding that even though she offered to host the party and pay for it, she was still hoping that Jen would give her the money back without her having to ask for it. Now, Angie K, let me just stop you right there. We all know that you throwing that party and paying for it, that was your way to get on this show. It is clear that you are dying to be famous. You are very thirsty, and that's no shade. I'm just calling it how I see it. You and your husband want to get on this show by any means possible, so you know that you plunked down your American Express and you offered to pay for everything. And it worked, because we saw how beautiful your home is. We saw that you can throw a nice party. You're now a friend of the show. You're getting camera time. You even have your own confessional. So, I mean, miss me with it. You're even on the after show, and that's rare. When do we see a friend of the show being on the after show? We don't. You probably might be asked to come to the reunion. So once again, sis, you paying that $15,000 for this party, that was pretty much your investment to get on the show. And it paid off very well. So for you to act like you've been conned or somebody pulled the wool over your eyes, that's BS. And like I said in last week's recap, you now wanting the money back, that's like asking for a gift back. If this was a loan and not a gift, then you should have made that clear, and you also should have written up an agreement or a contract. That way Jen would have been on the hook to pay you back. But there was no agreement, there was no contract. You offered, it's been 3 months later. So I'm sorry, sis, but that $15,000, you're gonna have to eat that. But Angie K continues on by adding that she's tired of Jen being so toxic, and she wonders if the group can see this too. Lisa co-signs and says that nobody should be in a hostage friendship situation and that it's not right. And then you have Dana to the side saying that she agrees. She also doesn't like Jen's behavior and how Jen talks to everybody in the group. But she also thinks that it's alarming that nobody in this group can seem to stand up to Jen or speak their minds. Now, I sort of halfway agree with that, Dana, because Lisa and Meredith don't have an issue getting into it with Jen. I think the only people who are afraid of Jen are Whitney and Heather. They definitely tiptoe around her. Now at this point, Meredith and Heather are tired of hearing Jen whine about Angie K and Lisa and God knows what else. So Meredith interrupts and says, look, Jen, let's just have some fun. Now mind you, there's a DJ on the yacht, so they're all ready to dance. So at this point, now the whole group is together, and it's a bit tense because Jen is on the outs with Lisa and Angie K and Dana. So of course, they're just trying to lighten the mood, have some fun. You have Whitney doing a handstand that turns into a split. And I said, okay, Kyle 2.0, because if you watch Beverly Hills and you know that Miss Kyle Richards loves a good split. So while they're trying to have a good time, you have Jen sitting down and she's saying some real slick stuff about Lisa. So Lisa comes over to her and she's like, hey Jen, what's the matter? So Jen starts screaming at Lisa about how Lisa hasn't been consistent and she hasn't been a good friend to her. And Lisa's really pissed. Lisa says, Jen, I've been a really good friend to you. What are you talking about? I've been very consistent. I just don't understand where this is coming from. The way Jen acted while talking to Lisa really had me livid. Because first of all, how dare you? Jen, instead of listening to what Lisa had to say, you're screaming at the top of your lungs, talking about, get away from me, be a good friend. And then when Lisa tried to hug you, like, girl, can you just stop it? Let's just make up and just be done with this. And then when you pushed her off of you, I said, okay, now had Lisa pushed you back, you probably would have fallen over. And then you would have been crying like you were the victim. Keep your hands to yourself. And you know who to try this with because again, had you been on another franchise, you would have been pushed overboard. I was so angry watching that, like, who does Jen think she is? I think that Jen needs to really seek some help because she acts like she's 2 years old. Every time somebody says or does something that you don't agree with, you just fly off the handle like a weirdo. And it's no surprise as to why Coach Shaw was tired and packed his bags up and was about to leave. Because he even said in the earlier seasons that he was tired of your outbursts. And then when she picks up the veggie tray and threw it overboard, I was like, are you serious right now? Wasting food for what? Just anything for a cheap moment. It's so pathetic to me. I think that Jen gives very much big loser energy. A very insecure and angry woman, and because she's angry, now she wants to ruin everybody else's time on the yacht. I've said this time and time again. When I'm in a bad mood, I don't want to be around anybody. I'll be miserable by myself, but I'm not going to sit there and try to ruin everybody else's time. That's not how I am. And I want to know, why are you so angry when you're the one who poured the champagne on Angie's head? Now, this argument between Jen and Lisa got nowhere. Jen was still screaming like a complete nut the entire time. And it got so bad that Heather had to come in between her and Lisa to break it up. I was too done when Jen started crying after Lisa walked away, and then you have Heather holding her and comforting her, talking about, I don't want to kick somebody while they're down. And it's like, Heather, are you okay? Does Jen have something over you? Because 2 episodes ago, you were saying how tired you were of Jen and her outbursts and her behavior, but now all of a sudden is, I don't want to kick somebody while they're down, and of course I'm going to be a good friend and stick beside her. Which one is it? So while Heather's trying to calm Jen down, you now have the other ladies all talking amongst themselves, and Lisa is over it. She is so tired of all the dumb games that Jen's playing, and she just can't deal with it. So now you have Whitney talking about she's just so confused at Heather and Jen's dynamic. They seem to be very codependent in her opinion. Now, while I don't really agree with Whitney any other time, I did agree with her on this because I've always felt like Heather and Jen have a very weird relationship. 1 minute, Jen can't stand Heather. She's talking about her appearance, making fun of her all the time, saying that Heather's fake and this, that, and the third. Then all of a sudden, she just loves Heather and she's loyal to Heather. Heather doesn't like how Jen treats her 90% of the time, but then is, well, I still love her and I'm still gonna have her back. So they're both fake and they're both wishy-washy and they both can't make up their minds about each other. It's pretty much a friendship of convenience. When Jen feels like nobody else is on her side, then she gets her good old trusty pal, Heather. And then when Heather feels like, well, I'm on the outs with Whitney and Lisa, so let me get close to Jen. But then on the other hand, there's a fear of Jen being mad at her. It's a very weird and sad dynamic all around. So now all of a sudden, Whitney starts talking about how everybody in the group needs to take accountability. And Meredith says, oh, I'm gonna see myself out because I'm not gonna get lectured on accountability from Whitney Rose. And then she imitates Mary Cosby and says, little girl. That was definitely iconic. Say what you want. Mary Cosby ate with that one because Whitney does act like a little girl. And she sounds like one too. And Whitney has the audacity to try to school anybody about accountability because she doesn't own up to anything that she says or does. And you had the gall to lie on Meredith when you guys were in Phoenix. So miss me with all this accountability talk. And I was so glad that Meredith paid that conversation dust and she got up and left. Now, when Meredith went to check on Jen and Heather, Jen is still going off at the mouth, blaming Angie K and Lisa for everything. And she gets even angrier that she picks up someone's pair of designer shoes and she throws them into the water. And Heather and Meredith just watched her do it. You have the producer informing Angie K and the rest of the women that Jen has thrown somebody's shoes in the water. Lisa's freaking out and she's like, oh my gosh, are you serious right now? They weren't my YSLs, were they? Because those were limited edition YSLs, like really hard to get, and they were $1,100, okay? I will be so pissed if those were thrown in the water. So everybody runs up to check on their stuff. And you have Angie K looking for her shoes like, oh my gosh, Jen, you threw my shoes in the water? So you have Jen lying, I did not throw your shoes in the water. I didn't throw your shoes in the water, Angie. I didn't do it. Like, it wasn't me. And Jen, you are just such a liar because production showed that those were Angie K's shoes in the water. I was livid when I saw that. How dare you? Don't touch me and do not touch my things. The fact that you had the audacity to throw somebody else's $1,500 shoes in the water, I would have thrown your purse in the water and I would have pushed you over. Don't play with anybody and their stuff like that. And had that been somebody throwing your stuff in the water, you would have been screaming, you would have wrecked the whole boat. People spend good money on their designer shoes, and you have no right to touch them because you're angry. At your big age, you are 50, 51 years old acting like this? Like, who does that? I would have checked Jen like, if you don't want to be thrown overboard, I'm gonna need you to Zelle me Cash at me, Venmo me the money for a brand new pair of my Chanel shoes that were $1,500. Don't play with me. I got a few pairs of Christian Louboutins and some Pradas, so things would have gone left real fast had she thrown one of my shoes in the water. We don't play that. Jen is a miserable woman, and I'm not surprised that she's in the boat that she's in right now. Once again, Jen is very blessed that she's not on another franchise, because had she touched one of the ladies from Atlanta stuff, let her try this with Marlo. And we know that Marlo loves her designer. Marlo would have had Jen in stitches. The yacht ride is over, and I have to say that I just felt bad for everybody on that boat because Jen made everybody have a bad time. She just sucks the air out of the room. Like, no one could have fun because of her. She ruined it. Killed the whole vibe. So now they get back to the house. They're getting ready for the dinner later on. And we see that Jen is sleeping in the Sprinter van, taking a nap. And I'm thinking, anything for attention. Girl, you weren't even that drunk. Why are you sleeping in the Sprinter van? Are you afraid to face the women in the house? And she was in the Sprinter van napping for a good 2 hours. So we flip to them all getting ready. Heather's in her room relaxing, and she's FaceTiming with Angie Harrington. She's like, Angie, girl, we just got here, and it's been a mess since the time we got in the house. You have Jen and Angie K going at it. They fell out. Angie Harrington can't believe it. And you could tell that she was so upset that she wasn't on the trip. Like, you could tell it pained her at the fact that they are all there except for her. Because let's think about it. Angie Harrington has been on this show since season 2. And the fact that you have these newbies who just got on this show, they're on a cast trip before she's on a cast trip, I know that has to hurt. So you have Angie Harrington trying to find out how things are going between Heather and Jen. And Heather says, look, I have low expectations when it comes to me and Jen. Our friendship is more of we turn up together and that's it. And again, Heather talks out both sides of her face because one minute she has high expectations for Jen and their friendship. The next minute, well, I don't really see it for me and Jen. All we do is just party together. Like, I'm not buying it. So now Angie Harrington gives Heather advice and she says, look, at the end of the day, just pace yourself when it comes to Jen because we all know that things can change rather quickly when it comes to Jen and her mood swings. Honestly and truthfully, if I were Heather, I would have cut Jen off a long time ago. Because one thing about it, I will never be disrespected. Because my peace and my well-being is more important than you trying to treat me poorly. That's not going to happen. There is no honor or prestige in letting people treat you like crap. There is nothing honorable about being a doormat. All you're doing is allowing people to treat you even worse because they know that you'll always be there for them. And that's why Jen constantly tries it with Heather because she knows that Heather will take her abuse. She knows that all she has to do is just give Heather a weak, half-assed apology and Heather will continue to take it. Then we see Lisa talking to John. She's telling him about how the trip is going so far. She's irritated by Jen's behavior. She's like, babe, do you know that Jen threw Angie K's $1,500 Chanel shoes into the water and then she pushed me? And if we're being honest, I was surprised that Lisa did not push Jen back on the boat. I would have been like, girl, you're not going to push me. Now we flip to Jen in her room and she has her glam squad there getting her ready for the dinner. And I want to know, how is Jen paying them? We know you don't have the money because last time I checked, IOUs and bounced checks don't cut it.
Ladies, may we get a word?
Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around. With your broke ass.
So we get to the dinner, and before they all sit down, Jen has a surprise for all of them. Now, since the theme of this dinner is a luau, Jen hired some fire dancers to come and perform. Now, Angie K had me screaming when she said, the fire dancers are a nice touch, but I really feel bad that I'm gonna have to pull them to the side and let them know that they probably won't be getting paid. But I said, I'm willing to bet that Bravo will pick up the check and just pay the dancers. So they sit down to eat, and now there's another surprise for them. These strippers come out, and they're dressed like the police. So they're trying to, have fun with the ladies. They're performing for Whitney. The rest of the other women are freaked out by it. Lisa's like, don't touch me. Don't come anywhere near me. I'm not into this. The only person I want to see naked is John Barlow, and that's it. Now, honestly, I get that Jen was trying to have some fun, but it just fell flat. And Jen, for you to hire strippers, you didn't even have the good sense to have a stack of ones for them. Like, it was just so lame. Like, it could have been a cute little moment, but it just fell flat. So the strippers leave, and now it's time for them all to eat some dinner. And the food looked very good, by the way. So, of course, the conversation goes left. Jen starts asking Dana, how is she liking her first ever girls trip? Dana says, I'm loving it, but I do have to say that the vibes are off. Then Dana brings up her argument that she had with Jen last week, and she's like, Jen, I have to be honest, I don't like how you talk to a lot of the women in this group. You're really not that nice. So here you go with Jen playing dumb, and she's like, who am I not nice to? So Dana's like, okay, you want to play this game, then let's play. I did not like how you treated Angie Harrington at Heather's choir auditions. And then on top of that, you even snapped at your best friend, Angie K. Like, who does that? So now you have Dana calling out Heather, and she's like, Heather, you know how I felt about this, because when you and I went out to brunch a few days ago with Angie Harrington, you voiced the same sentiments. So of course you have Heather sitting there looking nervous. She's pissed that Dana has opened her mouth and exposed her, because we know how Heather is. Heather is the ultimate flip-flopper, and she plays both sides of the fence all the time. So here goes Heather being defensive, and she's like, yeah, Dana, I did know how you felt about Jen, but tell her, don't tell me. Like, I'm not Jen's keeper, I'm not your keeper. Dana was not here for the BS whatsoever, because she said, okay, Heather, don't play, because you told me at that table that you would not be friends with Jen if she ever gave you an ultimatum about being friends with Angie Harrington. So of course now Heather's real nervous, and now it's real tense at the table. Now, while I think that Dana is very thirsty to get a snowflake for next season, I will say that I was here for her at this dinner table. She called Heather out, called Jen out. I said, now that's how you do it. So of course Heather's trying to backtrack, and she's like, no, I didn't say it like that. I was just saying that, yes, of course, what Angie's husband did was horrible, but he apologized, and he even said that he would do a public apology like Jen requested. And again, I was here for Miss Dana calling Heather out, because she said, now Heather, let's not, because at brunch, Angie Harrington let us know that she is no longer doing that public apology on Instagram. She and Chris spoke to their legal team, and their legal team advised them not to do it. And also, they don't want to have any association with Jen Shah because of what she's dealing with. So, of course, Jen is livid hearing this, and she's like, wait, what? They don't want to associate with me? And I'm thinking, Jen, why are you acting so surprised? You're being indicted on scamming the elderly, and you're surprised that people want nothing to do with you? Like, let's be real for a minute. So now Jen's going off about how they hurt her and her family, and how they were the ones who made the fake account, and she deserves that apology. I was thinking, Jen, while that might be so, you're not going to get that public apology on Instagram. So take the L. So of course, Jen is hysterical like she always is. And now you have Heather trying to walk back what she said. And she's like, look, I said that he should settle the score and make things right. And so Dana calls Heather out once again, and she says, no, Heather, you said that there shouldn't be a public apology. And you could tell that Dana was getting enjoyment out of setting Heather up in front of Jen. And so Jen is really set off hearing this. So she starts screaming at Heather. She's like, Heather, are you serious? What they did to me and my family was so evil. They tried to take us down. Like, how can you defend that? So, of course, she's screaming in Heather's face. Now, Heather's angry at Dana, and she's like, Dana, why are you so invested in this? Like, why do you care? So, when I tell you that this conversation went from bad to worse, you have Angie K now jumping into the conversation, and Heather is really pissed. She's like, Angie K, if anybody needs to sit there and shut up, it's you. I don't understand how you can defend Jen when she threw your shoes in the water earlier today. Like, what's going on? And I said, well, Heather, the same could be said about you. How could you go so hard for somebody who's also treated you poorly? Like, you guys are on the same level when it comes to taking abuse from Jen. And you're only upset because you've been called out because you're phony. You're not real like you say you are. You always play both sides of the fence. And then you want to sit there and get upset when somebody calls you out on your BS. Like, no, that's not how this works. So now Angie K says, well, you know why I can talk? Because I've been a good friend to Jen. So now Heather's like, excuse me, a good friend where? You just blasted your friend about how you paid for her husband's birthday party just a few hours ago. But now that's your good friend? Like, I'm just confused. Now, just when you think that this whole argument couldn't get any messier, you now have Lisa jumping in to expose Jen for the conversation that she had with all them at Whitney's hot tub the other day. So we see a clip of Jen complaining about Heather not being a good friend to her and how Heather's only there for her 60% of the time and she needs more than that and she needs Heather to be consistent. So Lisa goes on to say that nobody in this group is honest about how they feel. She's tired of it. And then she gets on Jen for Jen's behavior on the yacht earlier that day. Now, one thing you can always count on, Jen is always going to deflect and lie. So she's like, what was my behavior on the boat? I don't know what you're talking about. And Lisa's like, now, don't play in my face. You pushed me on the yacht. You threw the veggie tray overboard. You threw Angie K's shoes in the water. But you can't remember that? I was so happy when Lisa called Jen a liar. And of course, Jen didn't like that. She's like, don't you ever call me a liar. And I was thinking, I mean, what else can we call you? That's what you are. And then you have the nerve to be a thief on top of that. But then again, lying and scamming usually go hand in hand. So while Lisa's yelling at Jen, you now have Jen turn her attention to Angie K, and she gives the weakest apology I have ever seen. Angie K accepts the apology surprisingly, and I was thinking, absolutely not. You poured champagne on my head and then threw my Chanel heels into the water?
No.
So now Lisa interrupts again, and she is forcing Jen to reveal what she said at Whitney's hot tub the other day about Heather. So Jen finally cops to what was said, and she's like, look, Heather, I was just upset to see Angie Harrington at your choir auditions because when I told you what happened, you seemed to have a strong opinion that it was wrong. And it really hurt my feelings to see her there. So now Heather's like, why were your feelings hurt? Because Angie and Whitney showed up in matching outfits? So you have Whitney talking about, now girl, why am I in it? Like, what does me in a matching outfit have to do with anything? Like, stick to the topic at hand. Don't bring me into your mess with Jen. So you have Heather lying and making excuses, and she's talking about, well, I didn't know that Whitney and Angie Harrington were going to show up together. And now Whitney cuts in and says, yes, you did. You invited both of us. Like, what are you saying right now? So now Heather's like, you know what? Look, I could have made it so that you guys didn't have to see each other at the auditions. Like, I own it, all right? I was wrong. So, of course, Jen is crying, and she says to Heather, how can you be friends with somebody who did something so evil to me and my family? And Heather says, but he apologized, right? And then Jen says, but he only apologized because he got caught. So you can already tell that things are not going to be resolved. You have Heather going around the table asking all of them if they're still friends with Angie Harrington, and everybody is. So she feels because of that, there's no reason for her to say goodbye to the friendship that she has with Angie Harrington. So now Jen is really upset and she's like, are you serious, Heather? You're supposed to be my ride or die. And Heather says, I can still be your ride or die and still be Angie's ride or die too. And I said, Jen, just make peace with the fact that Heather is not going to drop her friendship with Angie Harrington and move accordingly. Also, Jen, while I'm usually on the side of you should pick a side, in your case, you are such an awful friend to people. The way you speak to people, I don't feel bad for you. And in this instance, I was like, yeah, I would still be friends with Angie Harrington too. Because you have not treated Heather with respect. You've dogged her out, you've talked about her poorly, you've gotten in her face, you've screamed at her, you've cursed at her. So I'm sorry, sis. You don't really get the option to force somebody to not be friends with somebody else who wronged you. Because you yourself have wronged many people. And even Heather brings up the fact that she has still remained loyal to Jen after all that Jen has done to her and stabbed her in the back multiple times. So now Jen lets Heather know that she's giving her an ultimatum. It's either her or Angie Harrington. And Heather lets it be known that she's not going to choose. She's going to remain friends with Angie Harrington, and Jen's going to have to deal with it. So Jen's screaming like a nut yet again, and she's like, the only person that I know where I stand is with Angie K. So they're all confused, like, excuse me, come again? You just poured champagne on this lady and threw her shoes in the water, but that's your good friend? Like, what are you talking about? Even Angie K was confused, like, huh? What? I am? Lisa had me screaming. She was so over it. She was like, you know what? Shout out to everybody. I have fun.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun.
I gotta be good.
I need to call my son because my son actually misses me, so I'm over this. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. And then we see Heather get up from the table and say that she will not be dealing with any ultimatums and they can talk about this tomorrow morning when they've all cooled off. And Jen doesn't like that, so she starts screaming like the child that she is. And Heather says, girl, if you want to be mad, that's fine. Find yourself another Heather Gay because I'm out. And that's where the episode ends, with the dinner being ruined because of Jen Shah's outburst. I'm really glad that Jen has been let go from the Real Housewives because I am so tired of the temper tantrums. I understand being emotional, but you've got to control it sometimes. And you can't just start wailing and screaming and yelling at somebody because you feel like it. Jen needs to grow up. And the way she conducted herself this entire episode had me so annoyed. She's very irritating. At your big age, still acting like this, it's embarrassing. But y'all, I just can't stand how the majority of the women in this group cannot be honest with how they feel. This whole argument felt so convoluted because you have so many people lying and trying to backtrack with what they said. For Jen to be so tough, it was weird how she was so scared to tell Heather to her face about how she felt like Heather wasn't there for her. You're so big and bad any other time, so speak up now, sis. But guys, that was my recap. Thank you all so much for watching. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.